Hi, my name is Lindsay, and this is my experience with deep learning and ungrading in the STEM classroom. How my observations connect with my research and literature review. I am a science, technology, and physics teacher at Crescent Collegiate. Arriving at this topic, which I am quite passionate about, happened accidentally. When school shut down in the spring of 2020, I found myself with time to give serious consideration to what my students needed. I wondered what really worked for them prior to the pandemic shutting schools down and what could be done better, whether virtual or in person, to help students strive for more in their learning experiences. I dove into research and started asking some tough questions with the support of my administration and an NLESD colleague. Nearing the end of my Master's of Education in Curriculum, Teaching, and Learning Studies with a focus in science and mathematics, professionals in the field were emphasizing the importance of universal design for learning, often known as UDL, and deep learning experiences. Digging into that research, I felt I had more questions than answers. If so many professionals in education felt that this was the best way forward, and they felt strongly it was the best way forward with missed in-class opportunities following a global pandemic, why had we heard and seen so little of it to this point? The pillars for deep learning and universal design learning are quite similar. Their premise is set on differentiation of instruction for all students, usually in project-based structures that have high ceiling, low floor solutions. The learning is meant to be motivated by student curiosity, ideally with student input. Teachers as facilitators let go of the power of being the all-knowing leader in the room and often get to learn alongside their students. These experiences all involve and develop the 6 C's of the global competencies for deep learning, including character, citizenship, collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. Involving these components can be done through pedagogical practices, learning partnerships, leveraging digital, and by developing a culture of learning. In our current system of education, many components are still standardized to the core. Both instruction and assessment look just as they did in the 1800s in many classrooms today. It seems that most educators do not question or challenge this system, perhaps because it is what they knew themselves as students. It turns out that grading was only created when schools were publicly mandated for attendance and were used as a mechanism for sorting those attending. Prior to grades being awarded, all progress reports were verbal and in person with student families. In fact, grades were kept from students to avoid competition between them. In 2017, Bowler and Selling stated that over the last 15 years, researchers have shown that learning is not just about accumulating knowledge, it is about the formation of an identity. In science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM education, most educators' goals are for students to become innovative professionals, strengthen the STEM-related workforce, and improve STEM literacy in all citizens. It is the delivery of those skills and experiences that determine a learner's identity long-term. Standardization, in itself, brings any number of inequalities, and when a student's level of success in education largely determines their social mobility into the future, the stakes are high. It seems that restructuring the educational institution to include content of interest to students, and that making instruction responsive to student needs and desires is fundamental. Student self-identity is largely tied to their success at school, which is currently dictated in large by numeric grades. It seems that work needs to be done to improve this landscape. The great news is that a growth mindset and an emphasis on feedback rather than grades can shift that trajectory to the positive. Growth mindset is a concept developed by researcher Carol Dweck that explains that intelligence is not a fixed concept. Humans are able to learn and increase their so-called smarts throughout their lives, and the belief in the ability to do so is a growth mindset. People who believe they are not intelligent and that this cannot change hold a fixed mindset. The implications for each are far-reaching in the educational setting, so fostering growth mindsets throughout the schooling process is of utmost importance. Feedback is one way of doing this. Feedback filled with messages on how to improve with encouraging undertones helps support learning and the growth mindset. Interestingly enough, by pairing grades with feedback, the productivity reduces to that of simply providing grades, as the student's mission is reduced to point accumulation rather than improvement or the act of learning. Options exist that will allow schools to unstandardize their assessment practices. If educators dive into deep learning, they will likely find that standardized assessments do not fit unstandardized instruction and seek alternatives anyway. Self and peer assessment, portfolios, contract grading, and conferencing are some of the methods in which teachers can track and express student progress honoring the 6 C's. Ideally, to develop metacognition, autonomy in learning, and the growth mindset, students will be able to work alongside their teachers to develop success criteria for their learning so that all parties are clear on the purpose and outcomes for their tasks. As in any long-standing system, change can be challenging. Society may not see the downfalls to standardized schooling on the surface, and when parents send their children to schools, they have an image in their minds of what to expect. Amongst those images are usually students sitting in rows of desks, grades, tests, and report cards. This is what everyone who has undergone schooling to date has experienced, and the default in those cases tends to be, well, it worked for me in my generation, so it'll work for you too. Or, if it's not broken, why fix it? What society may not see is our changing economy, the need for creative, innovative thinkers in the workforce, and the fact that we are now training students for jobs that may not even exist yet, rather than jobs of the Industrial Revolution. Another common concern is post-secondary acceptance and scholarship determination. Knowing that grades from one teacher to the next are not consistent, much less institution to institution, makes this one an easier sell, one would hope. Perhaps we should be determining admissions and awards based on goals, interests, and references, rather than numeric values that may mean different things to different people. Students who have become experts in winning at the game of school may find new methods uncomfortable. This one is two-tiered. There would only be a short period of transition where students know standardized, and they would adjust once the benefits were shown to them. The other side is that for all the student standardization education benefits, there are at least that many disadvantaged by the very same system. Finally, the concern for grouping students arises. Perhaps we could still group students in grade levels, but by interest? Maybe once they meet the success criteria for some stage, they could progress. Why is it that everyone must stay at the same grade level for a one-year term regardless of ability, interest, or progression? Restructuring may be worthwhile. The opportunities in unstandardized structures are notable. The student engagement issue we often see as students move into junior high and high school can start to be addressed with deep learning and unstandardized assessment. With more motivation comes improved learning experiences, attitudes, and the development of the 6 C's. Without the extrinsic motivator of numeric grades, students are more likely to take more academic risks and push their perceived limits. The process of self-discovery could be much deeper at the grade school level this way, leaving students feeling more accomplished and successful. No need to take my word for it, though. Take a look at what some of my students from the past school year have to say about our first endeavor into deep learning and unstandardized grading practices.
I think that would be really good because I like the way that this class is taught so much more than every other class I have, because it's more of a different way of looking at things. It's not just, oh, here's a test, do this, then work for the next test. It's like you're actually like obtaining the information rather than cramming it, then putting it on the test and then forgetting about it.
Amazing. Lucas, you made my heart so happy.